He's not blackmailing anyone. They told us it's not a blackmail operation, so it seems odd to me that there'd be national security concerns in the Epstein files. That's so weird. Again, there's no way that the government fought like hell to keep them under lock and key if there's nothing there. Who amongst us has not brokered a security agreement between Israel and Mongolia?
Tim Dillon just exposed the dark and perhaps inconvenient truth about the Epstein files and the Epstein scandal. Trump's attempt to bury this for 11 months using every trick in the book to do it. And what it means. What are we going to see from these releases? Is there anything there? And is there stuff we already know about Epstein and his connections to America's greatest ally in the Middle East? You know, if I know Tim, this one's going to be awesome, so let's watch it. Please like the video and subscribe to the channel.
Will Trump release the unredacted Epstein files? Kalshi.com, folks. Go over there. Go over to Kalshi.com. Start your own betting market. Start your own market. Who knows? Are they going to come out redacted? Is he going to have Pam Bondi scrub all of the references to powerful Republicans? We don't know. Go over to Kalshi.com. Have fun with it. Have fun with an international pedophile ring maybe being declassified by the United States government. Go have a little fun. Make a buck. How about you make a buck? Because then you're sitting at Thanksgiving and you go, you know, we knew he wasn't going to release the unredacted pedophile report. And you go, yeah, I made a couple of bucks on that. Somebody go, yeah? You go, yeah, I made a couple of bucks. Actually, I bet on that. I knew he wouldn't, and I made a couple of bucks. And they go, interesting.
Yeah, it's a sure thing you can make a couple of bucks betting against documents being released in totality. Obviously, there's going to be redactions. There's going to be documents that are classified, and we'll just say, nothing to see there, nothing to see here, security concerns. It will jeopardize the political system, even though we're telling you he had no connections to foreign governments. Nothing to see here, but still national security concerns.
You're not going to make a couple of bucks? Mike Johnson's mad at this. He's not happy. He's the Speaker of the House. He's angry that the Epstein files might be released. He's like not happy. He's like disappointed. Watch this. This is the Speaker of our House of Representatives, and as my late nanny would say, God help us and save us. Mike Johnson.
All right. Number 5, national security concerns, okay? The discharge requires the Attorney General to release within 30 days, quote, classified information to the maximum extent possible. This ignores the principle that declassification should always rest, and always has rested, with the agency that originated the intelligence. Why? So that they can protect their critical sources and methods. It is incredibly dangerous to demand that officials or employees of the DOJ declassify materials that originated in other agencies.
Totally cool. Right. Great point. Let's not do it. He just won me over. I totally forgot about that. That's such a good point that he just made about that. Totally fucking, the guy hit it out of the park right there. First of all, they literally told you a few months ago that Epstein was not running a trafficking ring at all. Now they're saying there are national security concerns in the intelligence of the guy who was not running a trafficking ring. Why would there be concerns about our national security in the Epstein files? Doesn't that seem odd to anyone?
Yeah, unless Epstein had connections with foreign governments, which we already know about 6 ironclad connections between Epstein and Israel, between documents that have already been released in the House oversight leaks of those emails in the last month or so. We know that. And when Mike Johnson talks about our sources and methods had to be protected, what he means is Epstein has to be protected and blackmail operations had to be protected and the U.S.-Israeli relationship has to be protected. That's what he means by national security concerns. Otherwise, there would be none. If Epstein didn't have connections to foreign governments, this wouldn't exactly be embarrassing to the United States. But if he does, which we know he does, it's particularly embarrassing. It explains the whole thing.
Supposedly there was no client list and he wasn't doing anything. And then if he was doing something, he was just pimping out girls to rich guys, which is obviously evil and they should all go to jail. But why does this have to do with our national security? That's odd. It's odd that we're talking about this in terms of, quote, intelligence and our national security. Remember, Jeffrey Epstein is just like a weird rich guy who has a predilection for underage girls, right? Like he's not doing anything on behalf of any foreign government?
Yeah, not at all. Nothing to see here. At least that's what the DOJ and FBI memo said, that there's no evidence that he had collaborators, even though we know Jean-Luc Brunel offed himself in a French prison because of his connections to Epstein after he was apprehended. And we know about Epstein's connections to Israeli intelligence going back decades. His relationship with Adnan Khashoggi, who ran Iran-Contra on the Israeli side. He was good friends with Ehud Barak till the end. That's even solidified even more in these email exchanges. You know, he was the protege of Robert Maxwell. But we're just supposed to pretend that that FBI memo and DOJ memo was exactly accurate. No evidence of blackmail. And there was no evidence of foreign connections. Nothing there, nothing to see here. But, as Mike Johnson said, our national security would be compromised if we get these documents out. Why? You give away the game, Mike Johnson. You give away the game. People still trying to dig in their heels, cover this up. You just do. Tim's right. He's saying it comedically, but he's saying it accurately.
Right? He's not doing anything that our government knew about, right? He's not blackmailing anyone. They told us it's not a blackmail operation, so it seems odd to me that there'd be national security concerns in the Epstein files. That's so weird. Johnson wasn't speaking off the cuff. He was quoting from a document produced by his office detailing 5 flaws with the bill. The 5th and final flaw, titled National Security Concerns, says that it's incredibly unwise to demand that the DOJ declassify materials originated by other agencies. That declassification should protect sources and methods and directs Congress to, quote, work with the Attorney General Pam Bondi to declassify in a reasonable time frame. It's just so odd that this thing that doesn't exist has national security implications. That's super weird. What?
Yeah.
I don't get it. Even if Epstein was this guy who was like hiding money for people, or, again, he was like a pimp. What does it have to do with America's national security?
Yeah, it's not like everyone doesn't set up wire transfers between a top spy in Israel named Yoni Koren. Not like we all haven't done that at some point in our lives, right? That our emails have leaked showing that we were confirming bank account numbers to make that wire transfer with one of Israel's top spies, which again, drop site news, Ryan Grimm and Murtaza Hussein divulged recently. It's not like that just doesn't happen to everyone, right? So at some point in our lives, we're all doing that with Israeli spies. But there's national security concerns because Epstein didn't do that sort of thing, right? Yeah, we're not buying this anymore.
Huh. So odd. Interesting. Well, I guess when the documents come out, we'll find all that out. Why it's such a concern and why they don't want it out and who's embarrassed. And I think it's going to be a watershed moment when these things come out. I think people are going to be disturbed by the content of them. And I think the content of these documents is going to be enough to paint a global picture that people are going to find less than thrilling.
Yeah, I think Tim's being facetious here, but nothing of substance that really will be eye-opening, eyebrow-raising will come out. They will redact the hell out of these documents. They'll declassify the documents that are even more interesting and compelling than that. And I've said this since the start of this whole scandal, is the way that the administration and Biden, by the way, has handled this whole thing, and especially Trump, because he promised this and didn't deliver on this. Instead, he delivered a cover-up. It's assured that this story will become this generation's JFK. That the way that they've responded to this thing has only invited and guaranteed, the most kind of cynical outlook on this story, because there has to be a cynical outlook on this story. Why else would they try to move worlds to do this? So I don't think it's going to, blow people's minds, but just the optics of what's happened to cover it up is actually what's going to guarantee that.
I believe. But that's just my own belief. I don't know. I mean, maybe it's going to be underwhelming, but again, there's no way that the government fought like hell to keep them under lock and key if there's nothing there.
Right.
So they might be running around now trying to redact them and, so you're confused by them and you don't really know what's going on. They might be trying to scrub certain names from them or certain implications. I don't really know. There's people saying that it's going to open a can of worms up about his relationship with Russia. I don't know if that's true. There are people saying that Putin's got compromat on Trump and has forever. There are people saying that it's going to be about Israel. We're going to find out Epstein was Mossad adjacent. And he was working, there's an article that came out where it was basically like Epstein and Ehud Barak were back-channeling with Putin about the Syrian civil war.
Yeah, this is accurate. It's already been confirmed he was Mossad adjacent for sure. There is evidence that he brokered a meeting between Ehud Barak, his good buddy, former prime minister of Israel, also head of IDF intelligence, served as the defense minister for a while, which, by the way, Epstein drafted an entire speech for Barak on the part of the Israeli government, literally working for the Israeli government. He brokered an arrangement whereupon Ehud Barak would talk to Vladimir Putin about how the two could benefit financially from the Syrian civil war also. So we know this. This already exists before any of these disclosures. It's just being shoved under a rug and completely ignored by most of the media. But Drop Site News, Ryan Grimm, and Murtaza Hussein, props to you.
And I read that article, and I forgot who did the article, but maybe we'll throw the article up in the YouTube comments or something. And that article was a very detailed account, a breakdown of the emails, the 30-something thousand emails that were released. And you have this guy, Jeffrey Epstein, again, who's back-channeling with Ehud Barak, who's the ex-prime minister of Israel. I'm sorry, he was talking to Ehud Barak about back-channeling with Vladimir Putin about how to make money from the Syrian civil war.
Yeah.
So again, that seems like a guy who's like a connected guy.
No, Epstein wasn't connected to people of prominence. What are you talking about? That's just an absurd conspiracy theory. You're just a loon. He had no connections to Israel, no connections to people of prominence in the business world, in the legal world, and the political world. No. It was all Epstein alone. No collaborators, no associations. Throw them out. Doesn't count.
I feel like that's something my father wasn't doing. I mean, I don't know about that. Like, there were times when I didn't know what my father was doing. I imagine he was at work or something, but like, he could have been back channeling with Ehud Barak and Vladimir Putin about how to make money off a Syrian civil war. I don't know. It's something I imagine he wasn't doing that. And if someone is doing that, back channeling with the president of Russia about how to make money off the Syrian civil war, it might be fair to suggest that that person's like connected politically. I don't know. Again, I don't want to jump to conclusions. It could be nothing. That's the other thing. It could be nothing.
This is literally, when they even approach these topics, this is what they're literally trying to sell us. You have to become, as a politician, as a bureaucrat trying to cover this up, you have to put on a Daniel Day-Lewis-like performance to convince the populace of this. Exactly the line of kind of delivery that Tim is doing here, that there's nothing to see here. You know, you're not seeing the color of the sky as blue, even if you look upward. You're just not. It's just a farce. That's disinformation.
It could be like an accident, Like, you're like, I was like at a party and then I met like a guy who knew the president of Russia. I knew the ex-prime minister of Israel. We started talking. We're like, since there's like this civil war in Syria, why not make a couple of dollars? That all could be like just an accident, like a happy accident. That's what they call those things, a happy accident. So maybe it's a happy accident. Can you find this article? Because I texted it to you. I don't want to judge anyone who's back channeling with the president of Russia trying to make money off the Syrian civil war. And I don't want to suggest that that person's connected to intelligence.
Yeah, how can we ever suggest that? It's too priceless, man. It's too absurd. For Americans that are actually following this story, they realize how absurd this is. And I can't blame Americans that aren't. They have different priorities, right? My priorities are not necessarily theirs. I have taken a swan dive into this story, gone down the rabbit hole, but it's not like most of the media is freaking covering this or these angles to the story, of course. You know, most of it's the salacious stuff. Is Trump's name in there? Is he implicated in the crimes? Really important questions. Same with Clinton or anyone else of prominence. But the connections to foreign governments, and in particular, the foreign government they don't want us to talk about, that Epstein was clearly most connected to, is at the top of this story, if we actually paid attention to it in a legitimate way.
Just because of that. I don't want to jump to conclusions. Drop site news, that's who it is. I don't want to jump to conclusions about any of this. I don't want to. Drop site revealed that Epstein had played a role in brokering a security agreement between Israel and Mongolia and setting up a back channel between Israel and Russia during the Syrian civil war. So what? So what? What? Listen. Who amongst us, no, literally, who amongst us has not brokered a security agreement between Israel and Mongolia? At least tried. Haven't you at least tried? You get up in the morning, you do your little workout, you have your coffee, and then you get on the phone with the ex-prime minister of Israel and then try to broker a peace agreement with Mongolia.
Yeah, you act like no one of us does that. You act like that isn't a recreational activity for half of America on Friday nights. Come on. You know, that's just coincidence, man. The stars just aligned. No associations with Israel here.
You want to go to bed at night knowing you've done something. Do the work, do the work, do the work. And I just don't understand what the big deal is. Why everyone's freaking out about this. I don't think it's such a big deal that he's just back channeling with Russia about a civil war in Syria. I don't get it. Everyone's like making such a big deal about this, but this seems like pretty common behavior for a person to engage in. It feels pretty common for a guy to be engaged at high levels with a foreign government, back channeling with other governments, setting up security agreements, and then trying to figure out roads to profitability during periods of internal chaos in a country. Am I wrong? Why do we even care? What's the big deal? What's the biggie? What's the big deal here? It just seems like a regular guy. You know what's the problem with Epstein? He's a regular guy. And no one knows what a regular guy is anymore. That people are flipping out about this.
Oh, man. Tim Dillon, man. He just breaks me up. He's so hilarious, man. Protect Tim Dillon at all costs, man, because he gets it. He's a comedian that's hilarious, that knows this story well enough, and knows how our absurdly corrupt politicians are handling this story. If you can call it handling. More like bungling or covering it up, right? And it's just so hilarious because this is what they would have to say. This is the narrative that they would have to say if they discussed any of these things. If journalism really existed in the mainstream, in the corporate media, and you'd actually get these questions asked to Carolyn Levitt instead of absurdities that have no bearing on what we should be getting to the bottom of. If this was the world in which we lived and the politicians were forced to answer these questions, they literally would have to answer them like Tim Dillon just did there. Like, the absurdity is so striking, and that's Tim's point. That's Tim's skill. It's something that you can't replicate. You can't learn that. It's just why Tim's so hilarious and why he's so great. But in addition to the security agreement that Epstein brokered between the government of Israel and Mongolia, he also brokered a separate one, according to these email releases, between the government of Israel and the Ivory Coast. You know, this is literally cold hard proof that Epstein worked for Israel. You know, not in an official capacity, but as some sort of an Israeli asset for sure. And it goes beyond that. Here's another story that Ryan Grimm and Murtaza Hussein did at Dropsite News about how Epstein spent weeks with one of the top spies in Israel, Yoni Koren. I mentioned him earlier in this video. But we know from these email releases, he was wire transferring money to Yoni Koren. And we have this in leaked email fashion here from the leaks. And this is already available before anything comes out on these forced disclosures via the discharge petition authored by Thomas Massey and Ro Khanna and Marjorie Taylor Greene. We know this. Look at this. They're confirming it here. It's a complete story. You can read more about it at Dropsite News, which is a heroic news organization, by the way. Ryan Grimm and Murtaza Hussein doing some of the best journalism in the world on this story. And there's more there. There's 6 connections. There's also that Epstein tried to solicit funding from a Rothschild bank to fund Israeli cyber weapons programs. That's another one of their stories in this series. And there's more there, but it's all being swept under the rug. No one's focusing on it for the most part, other than Dropsite and then people like Tim that cover what comes out of Dropsite. So as hilarious as Tim is, like, it's the kind of thing he's articulating here, the absurdity of this and what they want you to swallow from the regime, talking about this, how there's nothing to see here. Epstein acted alone, no collaborators, no foreign governments, but it's a national security concern too. If we give you these files, it's a national security concern. And I'm Mike Johnson. I want all these amendments to make it more restrictive, but there's nothing here outside of Epstein acting alone. That's what they're selling to you. It's nonsense. Of course it's nonsense. And Tim really reveals how absurd it is in his, very particular brand of humor that I just think's amazing. But what did you think? Do you guys think this is accurate? Does Tim present the absurdity and kind of reveal it in a way that people can get behind? What is the truth? Is there really going to be anything disclosed of interest or importance in these disclosures? Based upon what we already know, it sure seems interesting to me, but not exactly being covered. But what do you guys think? Let me know in the comments down below. Like the video, subscribe to the channel. Also subscribe to Tim. Awesome podcast, awesome episode. Love Tim Dillon. Protect that man at all costs. He's a legend. Total legend. And if you like this video, please consider becoming a YouTube member. You can do that by clicking the join button below. And if you do that, you'll help support the channel, and I'll really appreciate that. And in return for that, I'll give you access to all my videos before they go live to the general public on YouTube. You'll be able to see those members-only videos right away. And I really appreciate your support if you do that. Also, if you want a free copy of my first book, Compact of the Republic, click the link in the description below. It'll shoot you off to a website. All you do is just plug in your email and I'll shoot you a copy of that book in PDF form, free of charge, no obligation, just my gift to you. And until I see you guys next time, no more war, no more debt, no more inflation, and no more empire. Peace out, guys. Catch you in the next one.